Hi guys, welcome to Reality Check with Chante
and Ishka.
And today on our very first episode, we're going to dive into a very serious but interesting topic which speaks about breaking generational curses and healing what we inherited. To start off with an interesting opening question, what does generational curse personally means to you?
A habit that can't be broken.
Got you.
Now, what does it mean to you?
To me, I associate it with something negative. Of course, it's a generational curse. And that's about it. I feel like a generational curse, we reach to the generation now that are now trying to break these curses. Mm-hmm. And that's how I see it.
You think you ever, let me see what the term I'm looking for, you've experienced something like that within your family, personally speaking?
Definitely. Can I now mention from the top of my head? Probably not. But I do feel like, I won't say every family, but I do feel like we all, especially in the Caribbean, have a lot of family situations that are sometimes taboo. Mm-hmm. And I would associate the word taboo with generational curse in a sense that generational curses, we don't speak enough about it.
So I think, like I tried to mention earlier before we started recording, that the term curse is so strong. I think like if we say habits, it would be easier to flow, right? Mm-hmm. So me as a mom, I don't want to say generational curse because I have a child, right? Mm-hmm. But there are habits that have been brought down from my grandparents, my mother, my father, whatever, that I don't pass down to my daughter. But I don't think it's a curse. I just think it's a habit, you know? One of the things I could speak of, like, up top of my head is letting a child speak. So my mom is Dominican, right? And she comes from a time where, in their time, when a parent speaks, that's it.
That's it. Final say.
That's it. You don't answer back. I mean, I didn't have the opportunity to. Let me not say that though, because as I got older, because my mom and I, like my sisters and I, we have a really tight relationship, mm-hmm. and that's what kind of like inspires me to have that with my daughter. But I got to that stage in my mom when I was older, when I lived alone. But as a younger person, I wasn't able to, you know. But going back into their time, so my mom, we weren't allowed to respond back. But then in their time, I could only imagine how strong it was. So I wouldn't call it a curse, but for me, that's a particular habit that I try to break. So with my daughter, I try my best to let her tell me what she feels. Like she speaks to me about her emotions, whatever it is she has going on. Even though she is the child and I'm the parent, you're allowed to say, hey, mommy, this is my situation. This is how I feel, whatever. And I hear her out. I don't just, but generational curse, going back, I wasn't necessarily allowed to do that at that age.
I think that's a very valid point. I feel like, I don't know if it's a Caribbean mentality, a Black mentality. I don't want to really pinpoint what type of mentality it is. I do feel like oftentimes we were raised in whatever I say just goes. And I think that's one thing that I feel like I would do different if whenever God blesses me with a kid, is indeed, as you say, to give a kid the space to express their self, express their feelings. And I feel like a lot of times parents that do allow their kids to do so, they have a very different relationship that the parents that did not allow it back then would hope they have.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But because they didn't gave you that open space to actually be yourself, you grow up in a space that I don't want to share this type of information with you because if I wasn't comfortable then, why would I be comfortable now?
You know, one of the questions that we have enlisted here is how do we stop passing our unresolved pain onto others, right? And if I were to tie that question into what you just said, so how, like my daughter, for example, that's the only example I have right now.
Right. My
mom can be very stern, right? But then she sees the way I deal with my daughter. So the question is, how do we stop passing it is by being the example. You lead. Definitely. So when my mom noticed the way I dealt with my daughter, she started to do the same thing too. Because in the beginning, it was like a clash. Like, you can't be talking to her this way or doing these things to her because she's not used to it, you know.
The gentle parenting parenting style.
Yeah. But, it's not the same thing as a generational curse, but that's an example for me. Mm-hmm. But how do you stop it is by being the example. Like, you need to be the change that you want other people to have or to be, you know. You need to like lead the way in order for people to
definitely
change. So that's, I think, and to answer that question, how do we stop passing it, is by leading the way or being the example.
I agree. And I think one good thing to do as well, I think it really depends on whatever habit, if we're going to call it like that, what habit you're dealing with, is I always advise people to seek therapy for everything. I think that by ourselves, we can only imagine how we felt, but sometimes they always have this saying that hurt people. And sometimes in order to get rid of that hurt, you need to heal. You need to heal to be order to break that generational curse to be a better person for whether it's your kid or whatever comes after you, whatever cycle you're actually trying to break. And I think that's very important, especially the healing process. I think everyone heals at their own pace.
But then that also goes back to another question that we have here. What does true healing look like to you, and how has faith, spirituality, or personal value helped you heal? So you mentioned therapy. I've never done therapy. I've tried it. But it didn't work for me. I tried it twice. It didn't work for me. Okay. What worked for me in terms of healing, like overall with certain situations?
May I ask, why did therapy not work for you?
The first time I went to therapy was in the United States.
Okay.
Both times were off island. And I honestly felt like I was going in circles. But that's just my experience. Okay. And I was like, okay. And then they wanted to like go the extra mile. And I was like, yo, I'm not like sick in the head. Like, I'm fine. It's just I'm going through something right now. But it just didn't work. I felt like I don't know. It just didn't work. What worked for me was faith,
Of course.
Picking up a Bible is what helped me heal with whatever I was going through at the time. So while therapy is a really good suggestion, there's other ways that we can do it as well,
Definitely. But I do feel like in healing sometimes, and especially breaking generational curses, we really got to sit down and reflect on life and really ask ourselves, what is it that I'm trying to change? And also sometimes the important question is to ask ourselves, why am I trying to change it? Sometimes we feel like, we just changing something like this. There's no real reason why you're changing it. And in order to get the result that you want, you have to ask yourself all the W's, like why, when, where, all the W's you have to ask yourself in order to break the curse. And I feel like oftentimes some people even go back into a certain habit because they know it's not good. But they're just so accustomed of it.
With generational curses, because it's brought down from the past generations, I think at least for me, the way I was able to reflect on what needed to change is when I became a parent. Because there's things I didn't realize or notice until I became a parent. Like, I'm not trying to say like I had like bad parents, because I had an amazing childhood, but there were things that I realized, okay, I can't or I won't do this with my child.
Oh, definitely.
So I had to really like look within myself and then look at my child and be like, is this the way I want to raise her? But again, not
discrediting anything that your parents...
because my mom, she was a great mother. It's just that there's things that I wouldn't have done, or I do differently. Yeah. You know what I mean? A lot of things I do differently.
Definitely. I feel like being raised a certain way, good or bad, you just have experiences, that you're like, yeah, I'm not ever doing that to my kid. I know how it makes me feel. I'm not ever doing that to my kid. It's just simple as that. And I feel like oftentimes parents know, they actually watch us break these curses, and surprisingly are actually very happy that we're the ones to do it.
Yeah, but some are disappointed though, because a lot of people feel like the older way works. And it does, because let me tell you something. My mom would always tell this story. Like, we would go to a supermarket or a store or whatever. It would be three of us because she had three girls. We would walk into a store, Chante, and our hands would be behind our backs like this, right? And she would say, like, you're not allowed to look, like, to touch anything. You can look, but you can't touch.
Right.
But my mom just had to give me a look. And then I would have it together quickly.
One time.
With Lisa, with my daughter, like, I gave her so much freedom. I got to talk a few times before.
Yeah, not a gentle parenting.
So some of them do feel like that our generation is maybe too soft. They feel like they're a little bit more rebellious because of the softness that we, allow.
In the parenting style.
So I don't know. I at least from what I've learned, a lot of them don't agree with it.
So how would you truly know if a generational curse has been broken? Or in this instance, we're calling it a generational habit.
If you don't see it anymore, if it stops happening, that's the only way I would think of it.
But this is just reflecting back on certain parenting styles. Because sometimes you do have generational curses that, we just got to stop it now. No turning back, no including the old ways into the new. I think every generational curse, I think depending on the situation, is just a little different.
I just think the term is so strong, like a generational curse.
I think we should, let me start saying generational habit, generational habit, generational habit.
Yeah, because when I think of curse, I'm like.
But I feel like the word is really describing people's experience.
Right.
I feel like a generational curse, you know what is a good generational curse? Incest, for instance.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
So that's what I'm saying. Like you have certain different aspects when it comes to like generational curse. That is a curse. That ain't even like a habit. It's a habit.
It's a habit because some people do it.
Some people do it, but you have people that they're like, I'm no longer doing this. I actually saw that on TikTok the other day where a lady was explaining that she was explaining her whole family tree and they were trying to get married within the family. Yeah, it was crazy. They were trying to keep everything within the family. She did end up marrying a cousin or an uncle.
What?
Had, I believe, 2 kids with him, got divorced, and she was like, this can't be it for real. And her family tree, like her mom is actually married to her grandfather's brother, and that's actually her dad. And that's a generational curse that needs to stop. And she stopped it.
That is sick.
It is. It is.
That is sick.
So that's just to show that I think depending on.
I mean, I only read one story about it years ago. This king, like they tried to keep it within the family, and he ended up getting so much different sicknesses. He had looked really strange. He was disfigured and stuff like that.
But they say that like growing up, my family always used to say like, be careful who you have kids with. It can't be no family because you can end up with yellow children. I don't know what that means.
I don't know.
But you will end up with yellow children. And in a term of, and especially in a lot of foreign countries, just a sidebar, they believe in marrying within the family, and they have a lot of disformed kids because of that.
That is.
But it became like a culture or something. So I don't know who is going to break that.
The one I was describing was family communication.
Right.
But another one would be like abuse, domestic child abuse, or unhealthy relationship within a family. So I don't want to say that I had that per se.
Right.
But in terms of unhealthy relationships, I would just say like in terms of communication, like allowing my child to be. That's a curse that I would end. Or like addiction, I never had that. But there are some kids that are born into drug abuse. There are some parents that...
Yep. Some parents actually just give it to their kids.
No, some parents, I don't know if you heard about them, like they take drugs while they're pregnant, and then when their kids are born, they're born
addicted
to the drug.
Right,
and that's what I think that's a hard curse to break, because go through that process to stop doing it, I think it's hard.
Yeah, and it's true, and so going back to what we were saying is breaking generational curses. I think depending on what situation the person is in, it's sometimes easier to break than another. I can only imagine someone growing up in a home where their dad is either in and out of jail or just forever has been in jail in their life or their lifespan. A mom that is on drugs, like, is a kid that comes out of a household like that, how is that kid going to turn out? Because sometimes they say that we are actually products of our environments. That's how we start off to be. And as we get older, that's when we're now finding ourselves, our personality. And that's when we're going to know, do we want to stray away from the environment that we're accustomed of, or do we actually want to stay in that environment?
You see, the issue is a lot of young people do not take accountability. And that's an issue I have. Like I've had friends that their moms would have a certain lifestyle, right? I'm talking about like female friends. And I know that they would say, well, my mother was like this, so that's why I do X, Y, Z. And it's like, no, but you don't have to. I know a lot of people that refuse to make that change and they want to blame it on their family. Those are the people that don't want to break those curses.
Right.
They want to just continue on, I guess, having the same habits. I think that goes back to healing and processing, like you mentioned earlier, and trying to figure out, yourself and knowing better. But it also is a product, like, it also has to do with your environment, and that's why I'm very picky now with the people I choose to keep around, because I need to have people around me that wants to elevate and wants to make a difference within their lives, and the lives of other people as well.
Birds of a feather.
They flock together. I don't care what nobody say. They flock together.
It had times that I honestly, with that saying, it have times that I agree with it, and it just have times that I don't agree with it. But I think that's a topic for a different time, guys. But at times I do feel like God speaks about being equally yoked. And he's not just talking about marriage.
Relationship like that.
Or relationships. He's speaking about friendships, whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, whether it's family. Like, learn to let go, learn to cut off. And I feel like breaking a cycle starts there. Learning when to or how to. And I feel like that's why some people have such a hard time breaking this cycle, because they're always looking at, I would say, the consequences of breaking this cycle, maybe of how the family would respond to this. Oftentimes a lot of us, I think, always want to satisfy our family. And by breaking a generational curse, you might not be satisfying your family at all, because to them that was a norm. And maybe now by you breaking it, like, you're being disrespectful. So what you saying? I was not good enough the whole time? But
even with that, like, it's a very good point. There's so much other things that come with it too, though. Because sometimes, like, I know people that maybe they're born from a certain lifestyle, like the drugs and the alcohol, whatever. You want to better yourself, and immediately they look at you like, oh, you think you're better than us all of a sudden, and it's like, no.
That's very true. That's a good point. That's a very good point indeed. But so, do you think can healing happen even if other family members refuse to change?
And that's what I was just mentioning. Know how they feel about it. But definitely. And I think a lot of consequences, for lack of a better term, come with it. Could be good, some could be bad. But
and especially if you're like sure about your decision and you're 10 toes behind it. I think in life in general, tunnel vision. You know that this is your goal. This is what you want to reach. But who's happy, who's not happy, they stay there. You know why you're doing that. And the thing is, like, parents have to understand that they already had their time. If that's how you choose to spend your time and that's how you choose to raise your kids, that's you. Now it's my turn. Now it's our turn to basically learn how we would like to live our life, whether they think it's good, whether they think it's bad, and how we would like to raise our kids. And if you don't agree with it, you either hop on the bandwagon or you stay there. But I'm going to heal. And you're going to accept the change, however you like it, yes or no, you're going to accept the change, because we're doing it for ourselves.
But you do, like, okay, going back to the generational curses term, you do realize, like, back in the day, a lot of our parents didn't understand a lot of these terms. Like, for them, therapy wasn't normal. For them...
And it still is not, by the way.
Right.
They still live this boxed mentality, honestly. Yeah.
It's not normal. It's not something that they're used to.
But do you feel, because
so sometimes
back then,
you doing certain things like that, or even trying to heal yourself, like, they might see it as like you're rebelling, and it's not necessarily, that's not what you're doing.
Of course, I can agree. And do you think that at times, or actually back then, that maybe they felt like they didn't have a choice because we're really different generations and we're more opinionated, we stand up more for ourselves? Like, if you compare
but
then
I was telling
to now,
you earlier, like, they were not allowed to do any of these things.
I wouldn't say they were not allowed. I just feel like that was a generation that just rolled with the punches. They just go with the flow. They could move out, whatever their mom said that had to be done in their married household, they would still do.
What do you mean?
So, for instance, let's say back then, I'm married, I have a household, and I'm living with my husband now. My mom, who has her own household, still trying to control what I'm doing in my household.
Which happens sometimes in this.
Which still happens, but back then, it was a norm that until your parent passes, they just continuously tell you what to do, how to raise your kids.
I think it depends on the culture.
Agreed.
Because there are some cultures that once you move out, you're on your own.
Agreed.
And your parents, they don't get involved at all.
Agreed.
So I think it depends on the culture that they come from. I think it's that.
What do you think about, for instance, the generational curse of growing up in an abusive household? And I'm speaking from a female perspective now. And breaking or trying to break that cycle of not wanting to be in that.
How do you mean?
So, let's say your parent, your mom, your dad, you grew up in an abusive household. That's a generational curse on its own.
Domestic abuse?
Domestic.
Okay.
Domestic. Which can be mentally or verbally.
But you're talking about the child getting...
Sorry, mentally, physically.
But do you mean like the child being abused or the mother?
No, growing up in a household. We're seeing your mom.
Okay.
Yes. See your mom, so then let's say at times maybe you were also being abused, to put it like that. Let's put it from that perspective. Someone who is trying to come out of that situation, oftentimes we see that it either goes two ways. That person actually disassociates themselves from even like their family, and they really want to, I don't want to say do better or be better, because they're not better than, but they want to come out of a certain lifestyle. Or you have this one figure that they kind of find themselves slowly going into maybe like an abusive type of situation.
Which usually happens a lot of times.
Right. And it's really just because they don't know any better. That's what they've been seeing their whole life, and it's almost like it's okay. So what do you think, how do you think that person should maybe handle breaking that generational curse if they don't know how to?
Well, most of the times, if you don't know better, like, you won't do better. That's just what it is. You don't know. But I think, again, with a lot of situations in life, I mean, it's a tough question. I wouldn't know how to answer it, because I think you have to be in it to be able to respond.
Right.
But in any situation that you're in, right, it's a thing of you wanting better for yourself.
Correct.
You understand?
Correct.
Like, I feel like, so one thing I've learned throughout the years is that reading helps. Like, you learn so much. Like, of course, experience teaches you a lot in life, but reading really, really helps. And for you to like find yourself, I think you need to read a lot. You need to sit with yourself a lot. And in order for somebody to heal from these type of situations, they need to like find themselves. But then what does that mean? What does that entail? What does finding yourself entail? That's some deep diving.
Right.
But I mean, my advice to anybody who become out of it, but how do you do that?
Right. And that goes into like the next question is like, how do we pass our unresolved pain? How do we not pass that on to others?
Just, I mean, like cutting the curse, cutting the habit.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just easier said than done. It's easier said than done, but I do agree that, look, if we're going to speak about generational habits / generational curses, we all have our own way of dealing with it. Again, going back to, it's whatever you're dealing with on different levels of curses or habits. I would like to keep it at habits indeed. You really have to find what works for you.
I think the topic itself is hard to discuss. Yeah. Because I think, again, like I mentioned, you have to be in it. Like last week we had a conversation about something that I went through, right?
Right.
And I don't want to label it as a generational curse, but it is unresolved trauma or unresolved pain or whatever you want to label it as. The only way I learned not to pass it down is by being more present, doing better for myself, and making sure that I'm in a position where it doesn't happen to whoever else, which is my daughter.
Correct. And that's you basically breaking that cycle. You're like, I'm the first or whatever the case is, but I'm the last.
Correct.
And it's not going to go past me.
Right.
And I feel like indeed that's a good way to really resolve, or at least stop the trauma from by us, because it needs to stop. I think if you look around, there are a lot of traumatized people right now. People that speak about it and people that suffer in silence.
Yeah.
And it's really sad. It's really sad to see. And I do agree that we can lean a lot on our faith. But for people that struggle with leaning on faith, something that some of them didn't even grow up in religious households. True. So then what do they lean to? And my main advice is always to seek help. Look for someone to speak to. Definitely speak to someone.
But also, it's not just speaking to someone, it's making sure that you have a very good and safe environment. You need to be wise when you're choosing your friends. I think growing up, like, we hear it all the time, and only as we become adults when we realize the importance of having certain people around us. Because yes, you can have therapy, but personally, I'm surrounded by friends that really and truly inspire me to be a better person. Like, they push me to be a better person.
Right.
They encourage me to be a better person. Like, your environment really matters.
I can definitely agree to that. You know, having the correct circle and having people to just talk to is also therapy. However,
I have a friend, right? And he know. I just tell him, like, he knows. I'm like, you need to be a therapist, right? Because I would sit down in the office with him
and just talk.
And I can tell you, like, he knows how much I love him. Like, he's one of my best friends. And Chante, for the last, like, I met him right after I had my daughter, like after I had Lisi. And my life has changed so much within the last 3 years that today I'm very intentional with who I choose to have in my life because of him. Like, a lot of things I do, the way I think. So I always think before I react now more because of him. Like, so again, therapy is great. Faith is great. Right. But I also think having the right people around you is just as good.
Definitely.
It's just as good.
Definitely. I can agree.
But therapy is, but some people...
What is one thing you inherited that you are choosing to heal, and what are you replacing it with for the generations to follow?
Something I inherited. I mean, the only thing I could think of really and truly is the way I discipline. Like, like...
I ain't whooping your ass like I got my ass whooped.
No, but I don't hit my daughter at all. I can't.
And that's good.
It. And I don't, like, the Bible says, what is it? I think it's spare the rod, spoil the child. But I can't do it. I can't do it.
Okay, so that's your habit of breaking. Like, I ain't doing that.
It was one of them, one of the many. But I can't see myself hitting my daughter. Like, I think there's so much other ways to discipline a child that doesn't include any form of abuse. I'm not saying that I was abused, because I think I needed to get licks the times that I did.
But it's so coincident. I had a discussion with a friend today, and we were literally speaking about, hitting a kid. There's a way of discipline and there's abuse.
Yeah.
And the way some people hit their kids, I feel like if you hit your kid, at least don't use an object to hit them.
Yeah.
Hit your kid with the hand.
No, but there was this one time. Yeah? I can't remember what she did. There was this one time. I spanked her with my hands. She's light skin.
Right.
And I think I sent her to take a shower. But I was like trying to be firm. Like,
yeah.
And then I hit her little butt, her bottom. And when she's going in the shower, I saw my fingerprints. Listen, that
sting.
That break my. I said I could never. And she looked at me.
She was so confused.
Yeah, because I've never put my hands on her. Like, I might threaten her, but I don't do that.
Yeah.
But also the reason why I don't do it, I'll explain why, is because I know a lot of kids that when they do get spanked, they become so timid. They become afraid. They don't want to speak to you. They're like, I saw a video the other day with this Caucasian child called some African American the N-word, right? So his dad came to discipline him in front of them. Maybe he was like 8, 9, I don't know. Kids say stupid shit all the time. Right. But it's, you can't call somebody a nigga. Like, let's be real.
Yeah.
But the way his dad was yelling at him, he was like flinching. And then he like turned his head. Like, you could see that he was so used to being abused or getting licks or whatever the case may be. And I think things like that is what trigger you to act that way. Yeah. You understand? Like, I just don't think that putting your hands on a kid or on anybody, but on a kid is the way to do it. I want my daughter to be open with me, with everything, with knowing that no matter what happens, but I don't want to have to, like, you do this wrong, blah, like, no.
Yeah, not for everything she deserves.
No.
I mean, I don't have kids yet, but I'm not sure if I'm 100% into the gentle parenting thing. I might be. I feel like I would, but don't piss me off. But I feel like I would
They're
raise a
gonna
kid that I
piss
just
you
gonna
off.
watch you like
They're gonna
stop
piss
it.
you off. They're gonna piss you off. So
Yeah.
I would say that's something that I inherit and I don't pass down. I really try my best to have good communication with my daughter. But again, going back to what I mentioned earlier, so I was raised in a home where I couldn't answer back. I couldn't this. I couldn't. I used to get licks, right? But when I got older, it shifted to a place where I was able to speak more and explain or share my feelings, right? And I see the difference. So I chose the latter, what I think would work for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it broke in a sense earlier in my life, and I realized, okay, I prefer this way.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. But I would not want that to be like to my grandkids and so forth. I wouldn't want them to inherit that. I wouldn't want that.
Yeah. I think for me, definitely what I think I broke it already. It's just really living for myself. I think a generational curse is maybe in my family especially is living for others in a way of maybe it's a Caribbean mentality again or something like that of always wondering who might think, what they will see, what. Stop it.
I wish we had started the conversation with this because I had that same thing.
Yeah, like stop it. Like
I was the same thing. Like it was the same thing for me.
yeah, and I feel like, like I wish they can be released out of those shackles because
I think
trust
but
me.
I think it is a Caribbean thing.
Yeah, I think it's living for people. And the whole thing about it is a lot of times, we do things for the sake of people and we're not happy with it.
Right.
So like, okay, I'm buying this purse because I know that people gonna watch it.
So
It's such a basic example,
Okay,
but
yeah.
it goes to show that, because I know people gonna watch it and they're gonna like it. And I don't actually want that purse. Actually, I don't even like the purse.
I think
I think one is definitely to live for yourself, do whatever makes you happy. I feel like that is not a habit, that's a curse. Living for people, that one is a curse. It doesn't make you happy. A lot of them are like you grow older to be miserable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You get up, you have to be free on whatever you do. You have to stand behind whatever decision you make. You have to be, again, just happy in however you live your life. I'm not saying maybe the life I'm living is better than what they're living. I never said that. But what I'm saying is waking up every day and having so much joy and not caring what nobody thinks of you is big. It's a big accomplishment. And a lot of times, especially with social media, a lot of times we still have this habit that we live for people. It's just different times in different ways.
But you know what I've learned over time, Chante, is to give our parents and our grandparents grace.
Oh,
because
definitely.
they were only doing what they thought was best.
Best at the time. Yeah.
But if you look at it, and I'm going back to like our ancestors, it gets better every generation. Like it gets better and better and better. As much as you don't want to see it or you might not think it might be that way, it gets better.
Definitely.
I think they get softer and softer.
No, they do. Because I can tell you, like, my mom always tells me, like, the way my grandparents were with her compared to me is two different people.
And it continues.
They're going to continue to soften. But I do agree with the part of giving them grace, but we are breaking patterns.
Yeah.
We're going to break the patterns. But yeah, I do agree with the fact of giving everyone grace. This is everyone's first time on earth. We're all doing everything for the first time.
My daughter, she's an alpha. That's what they are, the alphas.
Right.
So our kids are alphas. And they're being raised by parents that know better, that are not as soft, that can give them, we're the ones that are able to show them the difference between the two, the tough, the soft and the harsh.
Right. So between gentle parenting and a little tough love, we have like a mix of both.
Yeah, we have a mix of both because we know what it came from, but we are also in a time where we're also like learning and discovering new paths. Like I don't know how to explain it in the best of terms, but I think our generation that has kids, they're gonna be better off than the generation that's coming up right now.
Okay. I think one lesson from my family story that made me stronger. That's a very deep question though. I think that's a very deep question. because I had trauma myself. One thing I can say, what I have learned is what to do from what not to do and what to do better. I do feel like what made me stronger in general is positivity, faith, therapy. Definitely at a big age, I started therapy. Actually, this year I started therapy, which has really helped me. But also what made me stronger, as I said, is just not wanting to be like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a valid reason.
But I think that's how I opened up the podcast, is just like having a child is what made me more self-aware than like with every aspect of my life.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a lot of things I wouldn't want her to go through in any, you know, any sense, like family, whatever the case is. No, I need her. I would love, not, I don't need her. I would like for her to be happy.
Right.
You know, that's what I want from my child.
Right. So we may not be responsible for what was handed to us, but we are definitely responsible for what we pass on. So I think a question for the listeners is, what are you choosing to pass on?
That's a good question to ask them.
Yeah. It's a deep question. I think it's a reflective question. I think you have to be very self-aware to answer that question. And I think it's now the time for all of us who did not start us yet to break the generational patterns.
You know, and before we close off, I do want to say something though, because I know like a lot of people aren't like necessarily religious, like you mentioned, and maybe some people are too afraid to go to therapy. But one thing I would try to encourage people to do is read, because I feel like different books have like similar messages. You know, whatever a therapist might want to say to you, or what's in the Bible, but in a
sometimes
different way.
even similar scenarios.
Yeah,
that
but
maybe
I
you
think
go through that they solve it this way. Maybe you can feed off of the way that they solved it and be like, okay, the character in the book did it this way. Maybe it works for me as well.
you need to read.
Yeah.
Reading really helps open up your mind to a lot of different things.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Different opinions, and it will change you. You know, like I said, self-awareness I think is the most important thing, because you could have the friends, you could have the therapist, because again, I went to therapy. It didn't work. That's just me.
Yeah.
You could go to church, whatever. It's self-awareness. You have to.
It all comes down to that. It definitely, it all comes down to self-awareness, facing your problems. Because if you don't face the problem in the eyes,
at the end of the day, it's
you can't break that.
You. Like no matter how you shuffle it in life, is you versus you.
So this was definitely a really interesting episode, and we thank you guys so much for tuning in to Reality Check
and
with
we hope
Chante.
To see you next time, and Ishka.
And we are so happy that you guys tuned in, and we can't wait to speak to you guys the next time. Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.